Welcome to Country First Action Foundation's lesson number 10, the independent judiciary. Why does America give federal judges lifetime appointments? Why can courts strike down laws passed by elected representatives? And why did the founders design the judiciary to be insulated from public opinion and political pressure? The answer is simple, but profound. Liberty requires limits, and those limits mean nothing if no one enforces them. In the United States, the job of enforcing the Constitution falls in part to an independent federal judiciary. The courts don't command armies, they don't write budgets, but they protect something more enduring, the idea that we are a nation governed by laws, not by rulers. Understanding the origin, structure, and role of an independent judiciary helps us see not only how the U.S. Constitution was meant to function, but also why this design still matters in today's turbulent political climate. The founders had seen what happens when the government holds too much power. After breaking away from British rule, the architects of the Constitution wanted to ensure that no single person or branch of government could dominate the rest. To do that, they created a system of separation of powers in which three branches, legislative, executive, and judicial, would each operate independently, checking and balancing each other. James Madison, known as the father of the Constitution, warned in Federalist No. 47 that the combination of all powers, lawmaking, law enforcement, and legal interpretation in a single set of hands was the very definition of tyranny. But how could the judiciary play its role as a check if it answered to Congress or the President? To solve that, the founders gave federal judges life tenure during good behavior and prohibited Congress from cutting their pay. This would free judges from retaliation or influence, allowing them to make rulings based solely on the law, even when their decisions proved unpopular. This was not a theoretical idea. The founders had experienced colonial judges beholden to royal governors and knew firsthand the dangers of a judiciary that merely served the interests of the powerful. In Federalist No. 78, Alexander Hamilton made the most enduring case for judicial independence. He acknowledged that the judiciary was the least dangerous branch. It controlled neither the purse of Congress nor the sword of the President of the United States. But it did have something equally vital, the power of judgment. Hamilton wrote that judges must have the authority to declare void any laws that conflict with the Constitution. Without this function, he argued, the Constitution's guarantees would be meaningless, just words on paper. As Hamilton put it, the complete independence of the courts of justice is peculiarly essential in a limited constitution. In other words, when the government's powers are limited by a higher law, the Constitution, someone has to enforce those limits. That's the judiciary's job. Over the years, American presidents have at times bristled at the courts, but many have also recognized that judicial independence, even when inconvenient, is vital to the health of the republic. In the 1980s, President Ronald Reagan reaffirmed the founders' vision. He criticized judges who overstepped their bounds, but he also fiercely defended judicial independence as a principle. Reagan emphasized that courts should not impose their own agendas, but they must be free to say no when other branches violate the Constitution. He believed judges should interpret laws as written and do so with courage, even if it meant ruling against powerful interests. This view aligns with how the founders saw the courts, not as political actors, but as guardians of the constitutional structure. Unfortunately, judicial independence is under strain today, and the pressure is coming from both sides of the political spectrum. In recent years, some executive officials have openly attacked judges who ruled against them. For example, when a federal judge blocked a presidential immigration order in 2017, the president referred to him as a so-called judge. But these pressures aren't limited to one political faction. On the other side of the aisle, some members of Congress and public commentators have threatened to pack the Supreme Court, adding seats to change its ideological balance. Others have floated ideas like removing funding from courts that issue unpopular rulings or stripping courts of jurisdiction over certain topics altogether. These ideas may be framed as reforms, but they send a clear message. If the courts won't deliver the outcomes we want, we'll change the courts themselves. That kind of thinking undermines the very purpose of an independent judiciary. The courts are not supposed to deliver partisan victories, they are supposed to uphold the Constitution. In response to growing political attacks, Chief Justice John Roberts, appointed by a Republican president, offered a powerful reminder. We do not have Obama judges or Trump judges, Bush judges or Clinton judges. What we have is an extraordinary group of dedicated judges doing their level best to do equal right to those appearing before them. His point was clear. Judges are not supposed to serve parties or presidents. They serve the Constitution and the people equally, impartially, and independently. If you're a student of history or just a concerned citizen, this is the takeaway. The independence of the judiciary is not a technical detail. It's one of the cornerstones of a free society. It ensures that when a law violates your rights, when the government exceeds its power, or when injustice occurs, there is someone who can stand in the way. Not someone elected to please the crowd, someone appointed to uphold the law, come what may. This is a legacy that began with Madison, Hamilton, and Marshall. It was defended by Lincoln, Roosevelt, and Reagan, and now it falls to each generation to preserve it. Freedom doesn't protect itself. It needs structure, it needs restraint, and it needs people in every branch of government who are willing to uphold the Constitution, even when it's hard. That's what the independent judiciary is for. It is not the most powerful branch, but it may be the most important when it comes to ensuring that the power of government never outweighs the rights of the people. The independence of the judiciary is not a partisan issue, it is a constitutional one. And it is one of the reasons the American experiment in liberty has endured. And if we want it to endure for another generation, we must guard that independence as fiercely as the founders did. Thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions, please reach out to the email address on the screen, and we will get back to you as soon as possible.